You're listening to At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production.
And welcome to another installment of At the Mic, the podcast where we talk to people about their lives. And if you're a fan of the Blaze TV, you've likely heard this voice before.
And Moron Trivia is back.
That's the voice from the opening theme of Moron Trivia on Pat Gray Unleashed. It's the voice of Ed Bishop, who creates the promos on the Blaze TV and radio networks. Well, Ed sat down and discussed how he originally got into broadcasting, his yearly 22-hour drives with the family, his close friendship with Stu Bergier and his wife, Lisa, and how one of the biggest starlets in Hollywood bought his dinner one night in New York City. Here's Ed Bishop, who made time for us on At the Mic. He is the creative genius behind a lot of the stuff that you hear on the Blaze, both radio and TV. He kind of comes up with ideas, edits them together. You stop me if any of this is wrong.
I like it so far.
Yeah,
Just keep going.
Yeah, put the music to, you know what I mean? Like the Moron Trivia open, okay? That's all Ed Bishop.
Basically, yeah, anything that identifies the Blaze or any of the shows. Not everything, but a lot of it, yeah. The IDs, the promos.
Yeah.
Intros,
so good stuff. And it's your voice in a lot of the stuff, too.
Yeah.
You do so much, man. So that's
Thanks,
awesome.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted people to know who you were,
Cool.
You know, behind the scenes, stuff like that. And so we'll get into some of the things that you do around here later on. But let's start at the beginning. Ed Bishop, born and raised, maybe not raised, you can tell me. Mm-hmm. Definitely born in upstate New York.
Yep.
Okay, raised there as well?
Yeah, up till about 12.
Okay.
Yeah. And then,
So what part of New York are we talking about?
Hudson Valley, right between Poughkeepsie and Albany.
All right.
Yeah.
Very cool. How was life?
Not New York City.
No.
Just clarifying.
Two different places, right?
I did live there, but I was not raised there.
Okay. All right. So how was life up to age 12 there in upstate New York?
It was cool, man. Small town. You know, it's funny. I mean, I moved around a lot since then, and I always wanted to get away from the small town. But there were lots of times when I would like to go back to small town, just less traffic. Mm-hmm. Seems like, you know, people are a little more friendly.
Right.
However, everybody's in your business in the small town, so that's the downfall. But
how small a town you're talking about?
I'm talking 12 people. No, I'm just kidding. No, it was a small town. It really was.
That's called a compound.
It was a compound. Yeah.
That's what you want.
No, it was a small town. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how was school growing up? I mean, did you enjoy school?
Yeah, I did. I tell you though, I don't. I liked school, but I didn't want to learn. Like I can learn right now. I absorb everything. You know, I anything on TV, I'm just taking it in. I could watch Science Channel and I get it. When I was a kid, I didn't get anything. I just wanted to be out on the monkey bars, or I wanted to be in the playground. And now I realize it's because I wanted to be doing something like kind of creative. I didn't know what it was, but I did not want to learn anything.
Gotcha.
In school. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. Isn't that weird?
Did you? Yeah. Did you play sports as a kid? Did you do anything to get that energy out of you?
Yeah. Yeah. I played. Lots of baseball. Baseball was my thing.
Cool.
Yeah, it just kind of came natural. That's the one thing I can honestly say I didn't have to really try at. I'm not saying I was great at it, but
right.
it just came natural.
Just came naturally. Yeah, sure.
I loved it.
When did you hang it up?
When I got my driver's license and discovered girls. That was it, Like, that is it. No more baseball.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So at 12, is that when you moved to Southwest Florida?
Yeah. Moved to Southwest Florida. We always went there every summer to Florida, not necessarily Southwest Florida, but my parents just wanted to, get us out of upstate New York. They wanted to go down there. Weather's better. And
so did you guys drive all the way from New York? Did you fly?
We drove every year.
Wow.
Yeah, every summer we would drive down and back. My parents drove straight through, too. My dad would stop at a rest area and like, doze off for like 2 hours and then, wake back up and go.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So how long of a drive is that?
About straight through is about 22 hours.
Wow. Then, that's amazing. That puts to shame my family's record. We drove from Omaha to Atlanta in one day. I think it was 17 and a half hours. We stopped at a Walmart for an hour in Paducah, Kentucky, halfway there to kind of stretch and stuff.
Yeah.
We got to about Chattanooga, and the youngest, who was at the time an infant, she was at the end of her rope. Yeah. And she strapped into that car seat and just started screaming. So for the last 2 hours of the trip down I-75 in North Georgia, it was loud, but not stopping.
Yeah.
Daddy's not stopping.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
Yeah, we did it every year. I mean, we did road trips everywhere. We didn't have a ton of money, and flying a family is expensive.
Yeah.
Even then it was, if you didn't, I'm not saying we were dirt poor, but we didn't.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, my dad was like, nah, we'll drive it, and we'd stay down there at, my aunt's place in Florida. So we would go down for a month. So it wasn't like drove. Yeah, it wasn't like we drove 22 hours and came back 3 or 4 days later. We were there for a month. So my dad recuperated for a month and then got to drive back. But,
I gotcha.
It was fun. But the worst part was my brother had this life-size dog named Rover. It's a stuffed animal. But it was as big as him.
Oh,
and he
no, come on.
had to bring it every...
No.
Yeah, he did. It took up a human space in the car. So there was 4 of us in a small car to begin with this giant dog sitting next to my brother in the back seat. So
I mean, tell me.
Yeah. It didn't make any noise, so that was good. But it was just...
Did you think that maybe when your dad was pulled over taking the 2-hour nap, you think, yeah, this is where I'm taking Rover and chucking him in that dumpster before anybody notices?
I tried several times before we even left, yeah.
Okay. So you have 3 siblings, right? A sister, 2 brothers.
Yep.
You just mentioned the owner of Rover.
Rover, my younger brother, yeah.
How close are you guys in age, and where do you fall on that list?
Yeah, my younger brother and I are 2.5 years apart. We pretty much grew up together.
Okay.
And then there is a 8-year difference between me and my older brother. And so, I mean, we grew up together, but he was kind of out of the house, 18 or 19, so I didn't really grow up that much with him, except when I was really young. And my sister's closer to his age, so those 2 grew up, and then my younger brother and I grew up.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's kind of almost like 2 sort of separate families. Even though we're still super close, we didn't necessarily grow up together. It's weird. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You went to college for accounting?
Again, I hated school.
Because as a guy, you know better than anyone. As a radio guy, you want to get as far away from numbers as possible. That's how most of us got into this business. We were looking for the profession where you didn't have to multiply, add, subtract.
I had no clue what I wanted to do. But I did. I'm very weird where I do like numbers. I was very good at fractions, like all that kind of stuff. Like I just kind of clicked with me. That's the one thing in high school where I was like, oh, I didn't like it. I still don't want to be there.
You and I are not similar.
So I went to a guidance counselor, and I just remember them saying, "Oh yeah, you should go for accounting." And I was like, "All right, I guess." And yeah, so I.
So you went to school for 6 months, and then you dropped out?
Yeah, maybe a little less. It wasn't even a full. It was a full semester. So I guess it's 6 months, right?
Okay.
Like yeah, 1.5 semesters. It was pretty. Yeah, it wasn't a full year. I do know I got 15 credits. So I think
that's
it
about
was,
a semester.
Yeah. And I hated every second of it. It was miserable, and yeah.
So you dropped out, and then what happened?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily drop out with nothing to do. I happened to never had any interest in doing anything audio or anything radio. Nothing. I was a super shy kid, so I didn't even like talking in front of people.
Were you at least into music at that time?
Yeah, I always liked music. I always loved music. Okay. So I liked. I liked audio, but as far as career or anything like that, I had nothing like that. But I saw this commercial really late at night, and it showed like the radio board with the VU meters and and it showed somebody like sliding the pots up, the faders up, and it honestly just looked cool. And I think I was drinking that night, and it was pretty late. And I swear, it's just, and I just remember seeing it. So I remember telling my cousin about it the next day. I was like, that looks really, because she asked how I was doing in school, and I was like, don't even ask.
Oh, no.
And I was telling her about that thing, and that was it. And then about a week later, she had the number for this school in Albany that I was talking about. I just happened to see the commercial, found it was cool, but was lazy and never looked to see it didn't go beyond that. And she gave me the number. I called, went up there for a 1-hour consultation, which was basically me walking in there, them showing me this tiny, I don't even know how big, just a few room, little tiny broadcasting school. And they gave me copy to read, and I went in this little room, and I just read like a script. I was a terrible reader. I still am to this day. Like, I need to pre-read 100 times before I actually read copy. I don't know why. I just have to. I just have to really be familiar with it for it to sound right. So I sounded awful. I remember stumbling, and I remember thinking, these idiots are just going to drag me. Tell me to get. They don't care how much money I want to give them. They're like, get out,
See, because I think just the opposite when I hear you. You speak so naturally and fluid. You're telling me that was a learned art for you?
No, well, speaking conversationally, yeah.
Okay.
I can talk.
It's just reading.
It's reading. It's not even that I can't read. I'm trying to, I guess I look at it differently now than I did then. Then I never read anything like with a microphone in front of me.
Right.
For some reason, the guy was like, oh, you sound great. And I was like, yeah, these guys just want money now, because there's no way I just sounded great in there. And they said, yeah, well, here's the course, it's costs this much money. It's 10 weeks. And I was like, 10 weeks opposed to 4 years of college. I was still in school in college.
I see.
The next day, I dropped out of college.
The rest is
got a tiny little student loan because it didn't cost much to go to this school. 10 weeks later, I had a job my 8th week in. Like 8th week into the course, I actually had a radio
nice.
job, a part-time.
Before you're even done with the
Before
course?
I was done, yeah. But that was to be like a DJ.
Okay.
Coming up, the DJ story.
That was the job to be
that's what the school was for, to train you to be on air.
Well, what was the job then?
Oh, it was at a station in actually just over the border, upstate New York, but just over the border into Massachusetts, Pittsfield, Massachusetts. It was Live 105. It's just a tiny, small market station.
What were you?
Probably market 350, like that small. And it was just part-time, maybe overnights and weekends.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing about radio these days. There's not that
No
farm
minor league. Yeah, exactly. No minor,
Look at
exactly.
us.
Same thing, yeah.
Because, that's where we all started. Overnights.
Overnights for $5 an hour.
Right.
I mean, that was it.
My first job, and it wasn't on air. It was just running the board for an affiliate to the show Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it was before computers controlled the radio world, and you needed someone to manually play the commercials, pot it down, come back at 06 after, blah, blah, blah. But now it's such an automated mess. You can't get experience.
You get
no
practice. There's no way to get better now. I was terrible for the longest time. I mean, starting there overnights, $5 an hour, or part-time overnights. And it's funny you said board hopping. That's what I did too. I ran, part of my shift was Casey Kasem.
America's Top 40, yeah.
Yeah, it was America's Top 40. So I ran that. So half my shift was that in the beginning. So I was just doing limited on-air stuff, and I was terrible. I was horrible on the air. I mean, I still have tapes.
We all.
They're the tapes that they do two things. They make me cringe and want to shoot myself. And but I also use them as a gauge to be like, okay, I've made progress.
I've made some progress.
When I start feeling bad about myself, I listen to that. Yeah.
Pat and I had a discussion about this. He destroyed his tapes in some, not fit of rage, whatever. Just like he found his tapes. And he decided to destroy them, and he wishes he hadn't.
Yeah.
I played mine recently for my kids from college. When I was in college, they laughed me out of the room.
Yeah,
and I was right there with them. I was like, you're right, guys. This is bad.
Well, I went through and archived. I keep everything. I mean, there was a point in an earlier part of my career where I couldn't quite keep everything. I just was moving so much, radio.
Yep.
So everything was in the trunk of my car and whatever. But I just recently archived over the last couple of years every single thing I could ever find that I have. And I am anal when it comes to organizing everything. Right. I have everything from year folders, air checks that I found, different things. And I can't even let my wife hear some of the earlier stuff. Like she walked in one day, like when I was archiving something, and I just turned it down immediately because she would laugh me out of the room.
Yeah.
And I mean, she actually wouldn't. She would be like, "Oh, that's so cute," and that's what you want to hear,
No.
But no, it was.
Give me that.
It's so bad. I can't listen to it, but I don't want to let go of it.
Right. You just want to have it. That's what I was saying. My kids can listen to my tapes again when I'm dead. That's when you can listen to them, when you want to hear my voice.
Yeah.
But I actually need to get some organizing tips from you because, like, this podcast itself, it exists on this thumb drive here. And I told myself, I'm going to be so organized. I'm going to have, this is going to be where, like, the thumbnail image is. This is where the music intro is going to be. This folder. Oh, Edward, you need to help me because instead, I'm just so lazy. They're just all on there. And,
it takes forever, but once it's done, it feels great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sure. I'm not going to change. So, after you worked that job overnights, what is the progression of your radio jobs to get to where you are today, working for Glenn for the last however long? Mm-hmm. And were there any non-radio pit stops in between?
Once I got into radio, it was pretty much radio. The first year, a couple weeks into doing that part-time job I was talking about, luckily, the program director got fired.
Oh, luckily? The guy who hired you?
For me.
That's good. Okay.
Well, here's why it's good. The guy that hired me, he kind of hired me I don't think he hired me because I was good. He just hired me because I was an available body
right.
that could fill in a time when 7 people were listening, and they were all half asleep. So he was fired, and his shift was replaced. You know how everybody shifts in radio. The night guy went to afternoons. The overnight guy went to nights. I got the overnight position a month after getting out of school, So I was the full-time overnight guy. I did that for about a year. And the funny thing is, I swear it was $5 an hour. My cleared paycheck working full-time was $160. I don't know how. I really hardly lived. I was still living at home, so that helped. But it was just so bad.
I mean, that's radio.
That was radio.
I mean,
but I loved it. Like, I realized I love this. I thought I was on my way to being,
had potential.
I had potential. I was on the air, and I had a lot of energy. I was having fun.
if I stick with this is going to lead to something good.
I knew this is the only thing that I remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to work for the rest of my life. When I was a kid, I was like, I don't want to ever work.
Right.
Who wants to work? This is the one thing that wasn't work.
Yeah.
I woke up and I remember telling my friends, like, I was happy to go to work. I was.
That's cool.
And to this day, for the most part, you have your moments, but I really can't complain. But anyway, back to what you were asking. Yeah, so from there, a lot of overnight gigs, sent air checks everywhere, trying to get out of small town. Went to Kingston, New York, which is another small town. Mm-hmm. From there, went to North Carolina, Florida, Southwest Florida. I went back there to work in radio. Went to North Carolina again. Went to Massachusetts.
Wow.
Back to Florida, 3 times in Florida. And then to the Jersey Shore. And then after Jersey Shore, that's when I was hard, again, on the air. It was just, it was painful. I was realizing that I was not really making I was making a lot of moves geographically, but I was still not
linear.
Yeah. And I just realized at that point, I discovered the production studio down the hall, and that's where everything changed for me.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's when I got the job in Jersey, and I discovered radio imaging, which, you know what it is, but it's doing station IDs, promos. It's actually it's the fun part of radio.
Creative.
Besides, it's
you
creative.
can be creative, yeah.
And you could do things as many times as you want. You could perfect them before they actually go on the air, opposed to being on the air. You can screw up, this and that.
Right.
But yeah, so...
that's a great point.
Yeah.
Because sitting in here with Pat, and I'll fumble around. What's the word I want? What's the thought? But when you're doing like production or something, you got all the time in the world, so to speak, as opposed to just, whoops, you screw up. It's out there.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's good.
But yeah, so from Jersey, the Jersey Shore, I luckily got my major market break with a call from Philadelphia. And started working for Q102.
Q102 Philly.
I almost said Q105. Q102 in Philly. And and then from there I went to work in New York City for a little while and went back to Philly.
So your original connection with Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, is with Stu's wife at Q102?
Yeah. Okay. I met Lisa 19 years ago.
Wow.
It was 2001. I was actually the one that went and picked her up at the airport when she was living with Stu. They were in Florida. I didn't know them. But she had done some voice work for our radio station, just some of the IDs from FLZ in Florida. She was at FLZ. Yeah, so she would call and record some of the, call in and I would talk with her briefly. And then program director couldn't pick her up at the airport on a Saturday. And he asked if I would. So I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, that's cool. And I went and picked her up, and we've been close friends ever since. She's probably one of my closest friends for the past 20 years. Yeah.
That's great. So in that, and again, I'm just piecing this together.
You want to hear one other thing real quick?
Yeah,
please. The
please.
other person that I've known probably a couple months longer than Lisa is that girl sitting right across Sarah.
Sarah Sullivan, who runs the board for Glenn Beck Radio.
Yep, I've known Sarah since 2001 as well. Yeah.
That is so cool. Yeah. So is that where the connection for Glenn was made, in that building in Philly?
No. It's funny. The connection with Glenn, even though he worked the building across the street, I didn't even know who Glenn was.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know. And I remember her telling me her husband worked, or her boyfriend at the time, Stu, worked for some national syndicated radio show, Glenn. And once she said it was talk radio, I was like, okay, well, I don't care. I didn't. Like, I was a music format person, and I was like, all right, whatever. I never even looked into it. I met Stu. I probably knew Stu for 2 or 3 years. After meeting Lisa, I met Stu probably a year or two later outside of radio. We started, hanging out with those guys. And I really never even knew who Glenn Beck was. I wasn't paying it. I wasn't in that world, Yeah. So
okay. So before you got into broadcasting, some jobs, I guess, included Paperboy.
Oh yeah, it was my first job.
What time did you have to wake up in the mornings for that?
No, that was afternoons.
Oh, yeah. Lucky you.
Yeah, I wasn't waking up. I wasn't waking up to make 12 cents. I mean, I remember getting tipped, and if it was like a couple quarters, all I thought was Asteroids, Pac-Man, whatever video games I could go play. But I made like $5 or $6 a week as a paperboy.
So were you wanting great weather? My point is, I had a friend in high school who delivered papers. Had to get up really early. Had to get up super early when it was raining or snowing or something like that. Because you had to put it in a bag it and then bag it again and do the rubber
band. Put the ads
stuff.
in them and stuff.
All that stuff. Yeah. And so just add to his time if he knew it was going to rain. Is that, were you always rooting for warm, beautiful weather?
Yeah, definitely. And this was upstate New York when this was happening. So yeah, it was, and mine was a simple one. It was, I want to say 30-some people on my paperboy list. I mean, that was it.
Oh,
so,
okay.
but they were so far apart.
Oh, no.
So I had to ride my bike everywhere. And when it snowed, I couldn't ride my bike. I was walking, and I still remember. I was what were my parents thinking? Like, it's snowing, snow plows, and I'm out just probably, I don't even know how old I was, maybe 10, 11. I'm out delivering papers,
I wonder how many people would wake up on your route, think, wow, what great service. I wasn't expecting a paper today with a foot of snow out.
I did it. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
You've made Christmas wreaths before? What's that?
Yeah, for a week and a half.
Week and a half.
Yeah, it was a week and a half. It was one Christmas season.
A seasonal job.
It was a seasonal job. I needed money, and me and my friend Gerard read this ad in the paper, and we went. And the guy's name was Sal with some long Italian name, and I swear he was in the mob.
Yeah.
Because this was upstate New York, and it was a shady, tiny little building, and all it was people wiring together Christmas wreaths. And I did it for during a little bit of time, and then I couldn't even take that. I quit that job.
Wow.
Because this is too much work, building Christmas wreaths.
Oh, well, I kind of want to see an original Christmas wreath from
An original
Ed Bishop. Yeah, who got it out there?
None that I made. My mom didn't even want one. It was.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Oh,
they were bad.
So you've worked in kitchen work, landscaping. Any great memories from those experiences, or were those
backing up in landscaping? Yeah, backing a dump truck up with a trailer, like a long trailer behind it. And
I don't know what you're going to say, but it feels like something I would do.
Well, I thought it would be fun.
Oh no!
But I had to back it. First of all, I didn't back up. I've never backed, besides a lawnmower with a trailer, I never backed up anything with a trailer.
Yeah.
I got the concept.
Yeah.
But with a dump truck, there's no back window. You have to use your mirrors.
Oh no!
And I had to back it down a driveway that was just as wide as the vehicle, and it was about a quarter of a mile long. So, do you know what I'm saying? I just did, and it curved. It wasn't straight. It was curved. It was up again and on a hill.
Did it take you 4 days to do this?
It took me honestly about 2 hours to back it out of the driveway.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, it took I kept having to go forward. I came really close to just driving up and doing a U-turn with the trailer on the people's front lawn, but we just put landscaping in, and
you didn't want to mess it up.
And the guy had gotten sick on the job that day, violently sick. So there was nobody to drive it. I didn't have a license to drive it. I wasn't supposed to be driving this thing. But I remember my boss was just like, you just get it back here and I'll let you leave. When you get back, you can leave. And I'm like, ooh, I can leave an hour and a half early. I got back later. So I didn't get to leave early, and I didn't get paid any extra. There was no overtime, no OSHA. Nobody was there to represent me.
OSHA.
Yeah, no. I'm like, I had the it was terrible. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like something I would totally do. My goodness, that's hysterical, man. But you didn't mess up the yard, at least, right?
Well, there was a few trees along the way that I did go over. I was way off the side of this road, but it was woods. That wasn't their actual land. So,
that is so funny.
Yeah.
Any good memories from being a grocery store bagger? Did you get tips?
No, we weren't allowed to go to the car.
What is the deal with that, man?
I don't know. We weren't then. I don't know. Now they do. I know down here. This is the only place I've lived in Texas. I lived a lot of places, just by what I said earlier. The only place where the baggers will say, do you need help? You taking this to your car? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. There's only one bag.
There's one bag,
not a big deal. I appreciate the offer.
Sure.
But no, I never took anything to the car. There was a time maybe where my manager might ask me, hey, can you help Miss So-and-so out to the car? She was like maybe an older lady. But no, never tips. No.
Oh, man. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. You're married to Michelle.
Yeah.
Where did you meet her?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, no. Is this for air?
Oh, no, it's for air. Yeah.
The way you looked away, you're like, okay.
Well, because I married the intern, okay?
Yes!
Yeah. All right. Not my intern. It's not like, it wasn't like that. She wasn't my intern.
No, don't try to.
No.
Don't color this story before you tell it.
That's a good point. Okay. No. Yeah, I remember, it was funny because it was when I was working in Philly.
Okay.
The very last, I just put in my 2 weeks to move to go to New York City. Finally got not my major market break, but the market I'd been going for my entire career, New York.
Sure.
And I'd put in my 2 weeks. I was still working out the last 2, and I happened to see this girl standing by the copier. And at that point, I had nothing to lose. I was gone in 2 weeks.
Yeah, if she blows me off, I just got to lay low for a couple weeks. Who cares?
That's it. So, I just remember, okay, do you remember the movie Office Space?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyway, I saw this girl. I still didn't quite have the nerve to talk to her that day, but like a day or two later, I was talking to...
Wait, were you walking up to the copy machine with a baseball bat to take it apart? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
It was a bat. But no, I'm walking. So I happened to be talking to another DJ there, and I happened to reference somebody being a no-talent ass clown. A line from...
awesome.
Office Space.
Yes.
And she just looks at me and she's like, Office Space? And I was like... we're getting married. Yeah. So then we started quoting the movie. And
nice.
Yeah, within like that 2 weeks, like I think a couple days later, I was like, hey, you want to go do happy hour or something? She just turned 21. So and she's like, yeah, all right, cool. So we went happy hour and we became, when I worked in New York, she was in Philly still.
That's what I was about to ask you.
It was, that's I think why it worked, man. I know it sounds weird, but.
Hold on. So you were leaving a place.
Yeah, I'm getting way ahead of myself.
No, but I'm saying to go to New York City.
Yeah.
What city did you meet her in? Philly?
Yeah.
Oh, well then that's perfect.
Yeah, it's 75
because
miles.
Because it's a good distance.
It's funny because
comfortable distance.
Yeah, and I was really so psyched about my career and being in New York. I just moved right into Manhattan. I was going to just live it up.
Okay.
And not to mention, a couple weeks before that, I came out of a terrible, terrible relationship. So I know, it's weird.
I'm listening. Yeah.
So I moved to New York. And when I was going to New York, my thought process was, I'm just going to go there and enjoy myself. I'm going to have a great time in New York City. This is it. I'm not, no girls. It's just me. And then I see the intern. And then, yeah. So anyway, I become friends with her. It was long distance. We were just kind of talking really for a couple weeks. And yeah. And then we started hitting it off. And
so I'm just looking here. Mm-hmm. Would you, let's see, meet in Princeton or Trenton, like halfway point, just for a date?
Trenton's actually pretty close to Philly. No, she was coming up to New York, and I would come down on the weekends because I still was moving out of my old place in Philly. So I was, yeah, it was cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How long after you moved to New York did you guys get married, and did she move to New York, or were you guys off to somewhere else by that point?
It was long distance for a few months, and then kind of the New York gig kind of wasn't what it was cracked up to be, and it was kind of falling apart, and my position back in Philly was still there, and they offered it back to me, and I was like, I'll take it. So I went back to Philly, and that's kind of when Michelle and I clicked, because I was in the area, and that's when we took it, next level. We just really started, we were dating, all the time. Cool. So yeah, and that was cool. And it took a while for me to propose. She just finished college. Mm-hmm. I had debt to pay off. She had debt to pay off. We were in no rush to move forward, and she was totally cool with just like whatever, whenever. We knew we were going to get married. Sure. But it was the future in-laws were like, when are you going to get married? I was like, you'll know, all right? You'll know. Maybe you will. If you keep asking me, you may never know. We're already married, all right?
There you go.
But yeah, so it took a while, but yeah, we got married.
So you met her at a radio station. Is she in radio as well?
No, she was an intern, just promotions intern, which pretty much folding T-shirts and going out to live remotes and greeting people, yeah.
And so I asked the question when I send this email out to prospective guests. Mm-hmm. I asked, if you ever have any downtime, what do you do for fun? I love this answer. I brew beer and I drink it.
Yeah.
How long have you been brewing beer?
Since 2011, really. Like I brewed a couple with some friends and some small homebrew things, but 2011 I started dabbling a little more. I bought a homebrew kit and brewed in my kitchen, with just it's kind of like they're beer kits. They're kind of half done already. You still got to ferment and do the whole process of the beer, but the actual building the beer in the beginning is simpler. It's like a beginner's version.
It just feels like it would be too difficult for someone like me. I can't follow directions very well.
I'm not. I tell my wife that all the time. Even recipes. Like I don't know why, a simple recipe. Halfway through, I go back and I recap everything I just did. It stresses me out.
I know what half a cup of fill in the blank is. Why does it taste like crap?
Yeah. But the brewing thing, that started, like I said, that was 2011. And then we moved down here. I started brewing a little bit more, a couple times a year. It was cool to be able to drink something that you actually made and get drunk, possibly. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I took it to the next level, which is called all-grain brewing. So I build my own recipes. I get all the grains. It's a whole day, and then it takes, a couple weeks to ferment, a couple weeks to age. But, man, I got 4 taps at home. I built a key.
Nice.
Yeah, so you come over, you drink my beer.
So 2 questions regarding beer brewing. Mm-hmm. Number 1 is, how difficult is it to flavor the beer? Like, if you say, I want to make a citrus wheat or whatever, mm-hmm. what's the process of getting that fused in there, that citrus flavor?
It's funny you say that, because I actually have an orange wheat right now.
And you'll be bringing me a sample, yes?
I was thought about it this morning, but it was a little too late. I know. I was like, so you would start with a wheat beer recipe. So there were just certain types of grains that you use to get the base of like a wit beer or wheat beer. And then from there, the way I got the citrus in there is I took mandarin oranges or mandarins and peeled probably 4 of them, cut little slices in them, and put them in like this little cylinder thing, and I dropped it into the keg itself. So I didn't actually brew it into the beer. I put it in the finished beer in the keg so that when you pour it, it gets that flavor. And I used some different hops that lean more citrusy. It's all science, man. And like, again, back to the high school Ed, there's no way I would just be like, what? Huh? Now I like researching this and finding out what you need. It's recipe, but it's not food. It's beer. It's better.
We should have had it for this interview, man.
I know.
Please.
I could call the intern and I could call Michelle and be.
Oh, my other question with brewing beer. How can you tell what the alcohol by volume is on something you've brewed at home? I just have to trust the label.
Yeah. It's funny because it's super sciencey and all chemistry. But the simplest form is before the beer ferments, there's a lot of sugar in it. So it has a certain amount of sugar. Okay. When you put yeast in, what yeast does is it eats the sugars, the sweet stuff in the liquid, and it converts that into alcohol. So if you know how much sugar is in that at the beginning, you take what's called the gravity reading, and it's this little thing that floats in the liquid.
That's where you see like the images of someone looking at behind the scenes or something.
Yeah, you might see that on something, but yeah, that tells you how much sugars are beginning at the beginning process, and then a couple weeks in, you check it and you see where the sugars are at, and that difference, that percentage-wise, is the alcohol. So as long as you know the beginning and the end, there's a formula. You just plug it in on your phone or internet. Started at this level, ended at this level. Okay, it's 5.3% alcohol.
Wow.
So long as you do the beginning and the end, you'll know the alcohol. And mine all fall between the wheat one that I was just telling you about, I think is 6.1 or something. So mine all fall between 5 and 7.5%, 8%. That's kind of where I want. But I want to make some really strong ones. But I got a Mexican lager that is fermenting right now. I checked it last night, and that one's going to be actually nice and light. It's a light. I've never made a beer this light before. So,
if you ever need
quality control,
that's quality of the sampler.
Yeah,
someone to check them out.
Yeah,
I'm right here.
Now you don't live that far from me too, so you.
You also like to mountain bike, is that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean,
there's not a lot of mountains around Texas.
I was going to say the Texas version of mountain biking. But back in Philadelphia, I used to go up to the Pocono Mountains, and I would go up there. And I'm not like extreme hardcore mountain biking. I would love to, but I know I will kill myself. But I grew up also like a BMXer, freestylist. So I grew up on a bicycle as well.
Nice.
So I love that adventurous side. But down here, I do it more or less. I get out. I go 4 or 5 times a week around Grapevine Lake. And there's a lot of cool trails there. Nothing, again, super strenuous, but you get a good workout. And it can get pretty dangerous. I mean, it depends on how hardcore you want to take it. But yeah, right. I enjoy that. It's fun.
Okay. And you also do some disc golf.
Yes.
Right? I've played that a couple times. I've had fun. I'm just not good.
I wasn't good in the beginning either. And I'm not great now. But it's funny. It's a hobby. And like my wife says, I have way too many hobbies. I do. But it's better than having none.
Right.
Like I'm constantly want to do something. And that was the phase I went through for a few years. And I still enjoy it a couple times a year now, but I was going like 2-3 times a week.
Wow.
It was great exercise. Just getting out. And you walk like 2 miles when you're doing this.
Sure. Are there disc golf leagues or anything like that?
I think there are. I didn't take it that
You didn't take it that far?
I wanted it to be fun. I would go out with my friends and we would just egg each other on and insult each other throughout the whole thing. And
a drink?
That's the fun drink. I would try to always bring beer with us. So the game gradually got worse or better.
Wait a minute.
See?
Yeah. I got a brother-in-law who gets better when he's drinking while playing regular golf. You're saying it has the opposite effect on you? Or?
It's like karaoke. When you drink a lot, you sing good. However, you really don't. You just think you do.
I don't know. I'm looking at his scorecard, and I'm giving him another brewski.
But he's drunk. Is he adding the right scores in? I played with some drunks myself, and they all, it's always like, Dave, what do you do? My buddy Dave. I'm like, you didn't get that. And he's like, yeah, I did. That's what I remember. I was like,
that's what I remember.
But then he throws it right back at me. He was like, well, you drank the same amount I did. That's like, good point. So really, there's no validity to our scores at that point.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Let's see. You have a Siamese cat named Fiona Applehead, but no relation to the singer? What do we got?
No, it's, it's funny because we were looking for cats, and it's what's called an Applehead Siamese. Like, there are Siamese cats that have that really long, creepy-looking face, like the one cartoon. Yeah, okay, so they're like the creepy ones that I want no part of.
Lady in the
Tramp, and they're mean-looking. They're just whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this one's like a regular cat's head. And so they're called Applehead Siamese. We were out with Lisa and Stu, the night before we were going to pick this cat up, and we couldn't come up with a name. And
wait, now Stu, okay, I got it.
So Stu was, I think the next day or a couple days later, is a huge Fiona Apple fan.
Right.
And he was going to that show. And that just came up, and Lisa was just like, why do you name the cat? Because we told her Applehead Siamese. She goes, why don't you just name it Fiona Applehead? And we're like, bingo, that is it. And it's actually super funny because we get letters from the vet. It's got her picture on it, and it's addressed to Fiona Applehead. Yes. And every time we go there, they remember her because of her name. So yeah,
that is so funny.
Yeah,
interesting talents, Ed. Obviously, you brew good beer. I mean, I have to take your word for it since I haven't been offered any.
I've dumped a few down the drain. I have to in the beginning. Yeah, and I cried. Yeah, dumping anything with alcohol to me is a you cry, but I had to. It just wasn't good.
I'm with you. You do professional voiceover work. In other words, not just for the Blaze.
Yeah.
You could hear your voice potentially in other cities around the country on what, radio commercials or something?
Anything. Yeah, radio stations, whatever, Q102, blah, 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 all that stuff. Also, commercials, TV stuff.
Sure.
Anything.
Have you ever been watching TV or driving through a town you don't normally visit and heard yourself out of the blue? Has that ever happened?
First time that happened to me, my wife and I were in the Florida Keys. We just went down there, and we were staying at a little resort area, and the TV was on, and I still remember, it was a commercial for Time Warner Cable. So I was the guy saying, sign up now for Time Warner Cable and get, triple play, phone, internet, and I'm walking by, and I literally thought to myself, I was like, God, dude, sounds like me. I wasn't even thinking because I've never been out of my own local area. I heard myself all the time in Philly, on the radio, and TV, but I wasn't expecting it, and I was just like, whoa. And I just remember being blown away because I know and I've been doing voiceovers for 10 years before that, but I really never heard myself outside my own area. And I was just, it was a cool moment for me. I just remember being like, whoa, that was me.
That is
in
cool.
the Florida Keys.
That is
cool. But really quick, a funnier story was we were on our honeymoon and we just got in, we went to Sedona, Arizona. We just got into Arizona. We were staying at a hotel and my wife is just like, that's you. And I'm like, it's not me. She's like, I swear that's you. And so I waited again. I was like, it's not me. It was me.
Wow.
She knew it was me. I didn't even know it was me.
That is so funny.
And I had been voicing that. It was a TV station in Arizona. I'd been voicing it for 6 years, and I still didn't think it was me. But then after a while, I was like, how did she recognize me? I hear my voice every day in headphones. She caught it right like that. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
That is awesome. Okay, so you have eaten dinner with Scarlett Johansson. And the follow-up to that is that, well, you just tell the story.
Okay. This was at the time I just not even moved to New York. I was in the process, and I needed to find a place to live. So it was an ad in the paper, like a typical.
What year was this?
2003.
2003. Okay.
February 2003.
Okay.
So I meet this guy who's in New York. It's not like real estate agents everywhere else on the planet. New York, it could be anybody. I mean, you know what I mean? They're not actual real estate agents. They're just people that are hired by whatever to rent out their locations. So I'm meeting this guy like a Starbucks or something, and I get there, and it's this kid with a backpack on. Looked like he just smoked a pound of marijuana. And behind him, there's this other kid. So I'm walking around, and I was like, well, which one is which here? So I end up talking to the guy. He's the guy that's going to show me all these apartments. He showed me a few. We went around all these different apartments. I kind of told him exactly what I was looking for. So he's like, well, let's meet tomorrow night. So the following night, I meet up with him, or actually it was earlier in the afternoon. And when I meet up with him, there's a girl with him. Okay. I walk into this apartment, and really cool apartment. I walk in there, and she holds this little bag, like a brown paper bag, like a mini paper bag. And she's like, gummy worm? And I was like, what? Yeah, sure. And a gummy worm. Okay. So we're walking around. He's explaining this is his sister. She's in town. We're back in town for like a week or two, and he doesn't get much time to see her. Do I mind if she? I was like, no, that's cool. And it's 2003. We're walking around for about 3 hours. He showed me a bunch of places, and I was really, really appreciative. And throughout the whole time, I was talking with her too, and she was talking about how she's an actress.
Aren't they all?
As I said, that's what I'm thinking to myself. I was like, yeah, all right. This is New York City. Everybody's an artist, a rapper, or whatever. There's something in entertainment, and So the entire time I'm talking with her, and I'm not going to say I wasn't attracted to her. I was like, she's really, really cute, you know? And so the whole time I'm talking about what I do, and I think what I do is really cool. I'm like, so she's like, oh, okay, yeah. And I did some work for MTV at the time, it's same company in New York, and, you know, whatever. So I'm talking about that. And we're going around, and one of the places, this guy's like, he looks at her, and he's like, so what do you guys think? Like, you want this place? And I'm like, oh, no, we're just friends, whatever. So she was with us the whole day, and it came time to wrap it up. It was around 6:30ish. And I was like, listen, I appreciate all the help. I'll take you guys to dinner. And he's like, I can't. I got to go show a few other places. And she's like, I'll go. So we end up going to this little diner, tiny little diner. I don't know where it was in New York. I think it was like the meatpacking district in New York, so it doesn't matter. But it was like this. It was a diner. And so we're sitting down. We sit down, and we were just, you know, BS and talking. And you know how they have those mats on that you kids can draw on with crayons? Like it's like the place you can color them in.
Yeah.
So she starts coloring one in, and we're just talking, and I color one in. You know? So the lady comes over, and she starts talking to her, and she asked her if she could put it up behind the counter. So I'm like, okay. And I looked at the girl when she came back, and I was like, what about mine? She's like, oh, okay, I'll put it up too. It's cute little Asian lady and really old lady. And she puts mine up next to hers behind the counter. I didn't realize. Well, I'll get to this later, but. So anyway, we start talking, and we order, we eat, just about life, you know, different things. Comes time to pay. They don't take credit cards.
Oh, snap.
I was in the process of moving to New York. I had canceled my ATM card. So I couldn't just go to any ATM machine. I didn't know the PIN numbers for my credit cards so I couldn't use them to get cash out.
Oh, no.
And it was cash only. I had no way to get cash. This was like $30 maybe, right? And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I was like, you sure? I was like, I promise. You know, like, I'm going to see your brother. He's going to rent one of these places. I'll give him the money. But she's, don't even worry about it. It's cool. So she ended up paying for my dinner.
That is awesome.
And then I walked her home. Like, I walked her back to her apartment.
That's
and
funny.
She was telling me how she's like, yeah. So I was like, well, okay. She told me a couple of movies. She said Horse Whisperer. And I remember thinking, I was like, okay, that movie I've heard of. The other ones I had never heard of. She goes, yeah, I was a little girl in Horse Whisperer. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't see any movie she had said. And I'm thinking, okay, again, whatever. She was like a girl that walked behind a horse or something in the movie.
Right. So as you've been saying this story, I'm looking up her, you know, IMDb.
Well, the funny, and then she says right before we got to her apartment, I was like, well, you can be around for a while, because again, I'm thinking, hey, maybe it's somebody maybe I could date. I don't know. I wasn't with my wife yet, or girlfriend at the time. I got her email, and. She's like, yeah, she goes, I got to go back out of town. She's like, one of the movies I'm working on right now, it's with Bill Murray. She didn't tell me the name of it. And I was like, Bill Murray? I was like, I didn't know Bill Murray. All right.
Keep talking.
Maybe she is something a little more than you. So then, and then she's like, yeah, I got to go back to, it was, I forget what, Singapore or whatever. Yeah. And then she's like, yeah, but I'll be back, you know, in a couple weeks. We're going to go back. I'm just going to be there for like 2 weeks. Then I get back to my apartment, and I call my friend Amy up in New York, and I was like, Amy, have you ever heard, upstate New York, have you ever heard of Scarlett Johansson? She goes, oh, she's a singer or something? And I was like, no. She goes, I heard the name. I don't know. So then I start Googling her, and I do see a couple movies. And one of them I see is a movie with Steve Buscemi.
Okay.
Ghost something. And I was like, I have this movie.
Ghost World. Yeah.
I have this movie. I went under my TV. Like I said, this is my apartment back, not in New York. This is back in Philly. I was still there. And I pulled this movie out, and I was like, oh my God, she's in this movie. I watched the movie, and I was like, that was the girl that bought me dinner that I hung out with. And then about a month or two later, that movie, it was like the movie that broke her, Lost in Translation.
Yeah, Lost in Translation. Was the movie. Yeah. That's the one that year. Yeah.
That was the year. Yeah. But I remember her telling me how she was only 19, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I remember her saying how she's getting all these clubs. And I was like, how do you get into these clubs? She goes, there's like late night clubs and stuff. She's like, yeah. And I was like, wow, that's cool. You know, that you can get in these places in New York you know, as a 19-year-old.
That is
yeah. So
awesome.
she bought me, and I ended up renting a place from her brother.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and
you still owe her dinner.
Yeah, I do. No, I actually, I tried to give him money, and he was like, no, she's just whatever. But I did try to actually pay her back. So yeah, Scarlett Johansson.
That's fun.
Bought me dinner.
That is so cool. Mm-hmm. That is really cool.
Yeah, it was a fun, and people believed me, but at the time, everybody believed me. It's later on when people are like, no, yeah, okay, whatever.
I got it. Right.
Yeah, but because she turned into be pretty huge.
That is awesome. Yeah. So what is something that you want to accomplish in your lifetime?
Oh, man. It sounds stupid, but I don't know.
Because I can't tell you what your answer is because I can't pronounce it.
Oh.
You would love to open a... What's a pierogi?
That. Okay. Well, okay, I'm sorry.
What's a pierogi?
Pierogi?
Yeah.
It's a Polish, it's like a staple in the Polish community. My wife's Polish. And it's like it's like an empanada. Empanada, I guess is what it's called.
I still don't know what you're talking
Mexican
about.
food, you never had. Okay, it's like a...
yeah, is that like a flat thing?
It looks like a flat, it's got stuff inside of it. It's like, but it's flour. It's a Polish version kind of that.
Okay.
So what it is, it's mashed potatoes inside and tiny bits of onions inside of flour or dough, and then you boil it and you eat them with like onion. They're so good. Anyway, they're great beer foods. Like it's great to have, or you know what I mean, a beer snack to have with beer. I would love to have my wife make those. Open up a tiny little brewery where it's in the Florida Keys. It's like a little shack, and you can just come drink some beers. If my beers are gone a week later, then you're gonna, you know what I mean. Small batches of beer and pierogies. That's it. And I mean, that would be my, like, if I hit the lottery and I don't care how much money I make or don't make.
And all this in the Florida Keys, correct?
All that in the Keys. Yeah. Just to get under. I just want to sit in a hammock. Okay. I don't want the touristy beach side. I want the Florida Keys are like that. They're really chill, laid out, laid back. There's no just partying out in Key West. But for the most part, it's low key. Pun intended. Pun intended.
I've got a friend who goes down there every summer, he and his family. And tells me the same thing. It's the most relaxed place on earth.
It is unbelievable. We got married there. We love it so much.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Do you get to go back there often?
Our 10-year anniversary is in October. We're going back. But we went, we've gone there probably 5 or 6 times. But not since we moved to Texas. We've only been there once.
Wait a minute. We just stumbled into something fun here. It's the year 2020. Mm-hmm. You got married in 2010.
I know.
You met her in 2003?
Yes.
Okay. So 7 years of dating?
Yeah. Well, no. Huh? 7 years of dating.
Uh-oh.
Did I say 10 years? No. I meant to say it's our...
So we bounced... Okay, I got it. It wasn't uninterrupted. We can move on.
No. We dated for 7 years. Like I was telling before, though, she had a lot of... I had debt to work off. She had student loan stuff.
A lot going on in life.
A lot going on in life. And, man, you know the radio career. I was not even ready to... I was ready to be with her, but not settle down living-wise. I'm like, I'm going to want to be somewhere. Yeah. It
costs a lot to... I gotcha. All right.
So,
Oh, I won't pry anymore then. How about that?
You can pry all you want.
It's fine.
And we're both good. She's funny. Both of us were cool with it whenever. Yeah. She never once said, why are you going to ask me to marry?
Where's my ring and my date?
No. If she did, it would have been 12 years before that happened. It would have been like, oh, okay.
I love this when I ask in the email, do you have a bucket list? And your response was, yes, but mine is called a lots of stuff I'm going to do sooner rather than later because I got into broadcasting and have no money for it now list. That's excellent.
It's true, right?
It is, because this business, this sector, if you will, this draws us in like a siren. Mm-hmm. But it don't pay.
And it's funny because, I do my voiceovers on the side, and that's great. And here I am, better than I was my entire radio career. But radio, it's, it's one of those things you love what you do. Mm-hmm. And it's honestly, it's really the only thing I kind of know how to do that I can get paid to do.
Yeah.
If I had to do anything else, I'd have to start over.
That's just it. Yeah, that's what I tell people. I have to stay in radio because I have no marketable skills, man.
Exactly.
This is all I can do.
Yeah. But throughout my entire career, mostly the first 75% of it, I loved what I did. Mm-hmm. I just never had anything to show for it.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, so one more interesting thing here before I let you go.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all been there. When did you drop the F-bomb on radio 5 times in one day when you were a jock?
Okay, so you remember how I said I couldn't get a job anywhere for a long time? That's probably why. No.
Oh, no.
No. This was actually very isolated. To an extent. I just got hired in North Carolina. It was my break from overnights. It was my first night gig. Mm-hmm. So 7 to midnight in Eastern North Carolina. It was my first week there. I'd never done any commercials or anything like that before. And my second day there, they threw me into the production studio and said, we need you to do these Domino's commercials.
Okay.
And I was like, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I have no clue what I'm doing. I knew how to use a reel-to-reel, which is what we record on radio back in the day, and cart machines. Remember those?
Yes, I do. So I still have some somewhere that will never be used again.
Okay, so how carts, you have to, what's called bulk erase, means you have to basically put a magnet to them and it erases everything off. There's no
yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't do that, you would have double audio on there because it would just record over the old stuff, but you could still hear the old stuff.
Background, yeah.
So I was recording onto a cart doing a Domino's commercial. And it was what's called a donut jingle. So the beginning was like a sing, like, Domino's, blah, 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 blah. And then you come in as the announcer in the middle. At Domino's, get this offer and this offer and a cheese.
And the music's playing underneath.
And then at the end, it sings out, you know?
Yep.
I'm halfway through it, and I stumble, and I remember the word was participating. I go, at participating effing Domino's, and you hear me you hear me slam my fist down, and then you hear the tapes were winding back, right? So as I'm carting this stuff up for air, I know that's a screw up. I wasn't, whatever. So I went back in and I redid it. I got it exactly the way I wanted. I put it on cart. I'm driving into work the next day around noon. It was like their 12 noon workout as a top 40 station. And I hear the stop set. And I hear the Domino's thing. I turn it up because I'm like, it's my first, I've never really done radio commercials before.
No.
I crank it up. I'm driving down Highway 70 in Morehead City, North Carolina.
Oh, no.
I hear this thing and I'm like, this is me on the air. Cool. I've been here 3 days. And I hear that. I just hear me stumble, and I hear the F-bomb come out. I hear me hit the counter, and I hear the tape going or winding back, and then you hear me still cursing like blah, blah, blah in the background far off the mic.
No.
And then I hear it slowly fade down, and then another commercial comes on. So I pulled off the side of the road. I thought I was going to vomit.
Right.
I felt so sick. That was my third day. I just moved everything in the trunk of my car and moved to North Carolina. And I finally got up the nerve to walk in the building. The program director pulls me in the production studio and he's like, listen. And I was like, you don't have to tell me. I heard it on the way in. So he's like, I talked to, back then it was one owner. It was a really old school country guy, North Carolina. Really nice guy. He was just like, well, let's slide. It was his first time here, whatever. So the program director looks at me. He's like, you want to know what? And he starts laughing. He's like, what's really funny? That was like the 15th time that commercial had run. Okay. But it was one of 3 commercials. So it only ran every third time, which means that had aired 5 times. And he looks at the log and he goes, it aired twice during morning drive, and nobody caught it until noon. So I estimate that it ran at least 5 or 6 times.
Right.
So somewhere in North Carolina, some kid at the time was recording the radio, and I wish I had that now. But I still remember I was mortified. I thought that was at the end of my career. It didn't even get started yet, really. I finally start, not on overnights, and I'm done. So that, and when I remember on the air a couple times, I would go to a caller and edit and cut to the wrong call before I edited it, and they would curse or something. One time I was doing a live broadcast. I wasn't doing the broadcast. I was back in the studio, and I went out to send it to the guy. Hey, there's so-and-so at whatever nightclub. What's going on? And again, I recorded him, but I queued it up to the wrong one, and he gets into it, and he's like, oh, F this, F that. Let me start over again. I was 3, 2, 1. I was like, oh, my God. So I've done that, but I've never actually said it.
Yeah.
That was me saying it, and yeah.
I bet you wish that you had been listening that morning and just quietly gone in there, I'll take this. Boys and girls, remember this lesson that Ed Bishop just taught you. Mm-hmm. Listen to your work before someone else does, right? Because you just probably thought it was done and off you went.
No, you know how I said that carts, they queue themselves
but you
up.
didn't go back and listen to it after you did it?
I think I listened. Yeah, I did to make sure it was on there. But I think I listened to it, and the mistake was the fourth take, and I thought it was just queuing back to the third. You know what I'm saying? There were 3 takes. So
because then you walk away from the cart thinking, okay, we're done here.
We're back to the first one.
And it's queued up to the suspicious one there that
which
you didn't.
I thought was the first one again.
Yeah, so you thought, okay, now I can leave it alone because I listened to them all.
Yeah, so that's what happened. I did listen to them.
I got you.
Yeah, so yeah.
Man, okay. Give me your social media. Where can people find you? Are you online any place?
Yeah, if anybody's ever looking for any sort of voice work, you can go to Ed Bishop VO or edbishopvoiceovers.com.
Okay.
I'm on Instagram, same name.
Okay.
Facebook,
are you on Twitter or anything?
No Twitter.
All right.
Nah.
That's where the cool kids hang out.
I know. I'm honestly not a huge I'm not a big fan of social media.
I got you.
I just don't like that. But
Totally
I have to from a business standpoint. So, just to be relevant.
Right. Well, this is the part of the podcast where I take your picture for the podcast. So be sure and smile big there.
Smile big.
Ed Bishop, everybody. Click. click. Wait, you know what would be cool? You know what would make this cooler?
Oh boy,
is if I would have the sound effect,
sound effect.
Yeah, so that you can hear the ching ching. Oh well, it's not going to do it because I'm old and I don't know how my phone works.
You talking about the click?
Yeah, the click click.
Turn the ringer off. Doesn't
I
that work?
did, and it's not working.
Well, you can add it in post, can't you? We got sound effects. I got sound effects library. I'll give you.
That's right. You've got every sound effect in the
do.
world.
I can put the best camera effect. You'll be like, man, that's a high-end camera.
Wait, let's see. Hold shutter. Hold. I mean, I feel so old right now because it says shutter sound is on, Ed.
Yeah, but your phone ringer's off, isn't it?
Oh. Hang on. There we go. And
Try now.
Ready, set. This was so worth it. Oh, you can hear it. You can hear it, right?
Oh, it's so faint.
Yeah, that's stupid.
I'll send you one.
Ed Bishop, everybody, from The Blaze, the man behind the promos and all the fun stuff that you hear. Listen for his handiwork and his voice during the opening theme of Moron Trivia, for example, which you hear on Pat Unleashed. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you spending time.
No problem. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for taking your time.
Absolutely. This is fun.
All right, cool.
Let's have a beer.
Yeah, I'll bring him in.
Go brew me one.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
This has been At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production. Look for At the Mic Show on Twitter to connect.